A few days later, Gateshead. The inanimate objects of Gateshead had not changed, but the living things were altered beyond recognition. Eliza and Georgiana, my cousins, were much changed from childhood. Mrs. Reed was too delirious to remember why she had asked me to visit when I first saw her. She asked me to stay until her mind was clear once again. Reluctantly, I agreed. Eliza would sit half the day sewing, reading, or writing. She seemed to want no company, and nothing annoyed her so much as interruption to her routine. Georgiana would chatter about herself all day. She never once mentioned either her mother's illness or her brother's death, but spoke only of past gaieties and her present boredom. Here were two natures ruined by a lack of emotion, one intolerably acrid, the other weak and savourless. The two sisters had nothing in common beyond their mutual disinterest in their mother's well-being. Both were anxious for all to be over.
"Is this Jane Eyre?"
"Yes, Aunt Reed. How are you?"
"My brain deceives me. I wished to see Jane Eyre, so I fancy a likeness where none exists."
"Truly, I am Jane Eyre. Bessie sent her husband to fetch me from Thornfield."
"I have had more trouble with that child than anyone would believe. I was glad to send her away. She did not die of typhus at Lowood, though I wish she had."
"Why do you hate her so?"
"I had a dislike of her mother, for she was my husband's sister and a great favourite with him. He sent for the baby after her death, despite my pleas. I hated it the first time I set eyes on it. My husband cared for it more than his own children. An hour before he died, he bound me by my vow to keep the creature. I would sooner have been charged with a pauper brat out of a workhouse."
"Shh, you are too agitated. Don't think about the past."
"Eh? You are—"
"Aunt, do you recognize me?"
"I must ease my mind before I die. Go to my dressing case and take out a letter you will see there."
"Madam, will you have the goodness to send me the address of my niece Jane Eyre, and to tell me how she is? It is my intention to write shortly and desire her to come to see me at Madeira. Providence has blessed my endeavours to secure a competency, and as I am unmarried and childless, I wish to adopt her during my life, and bequeath her at my death whatever I may have to leave. John Eyre." "This letter is dated 3 years ago. Why did I never hear of this?"
"Because I disliked you too thoroughly to ever lend a hand in lifting you to prosperity. I could not forget your conduct to me, Jane, and I took my revenge. I wrote and told your uncle that you died of typhus fever at Lowood. You were born, I think, to be my torment. You have a very bad disposition which I can never understand."
"My disposition is not so bad as you think. I should have been glad to love you if you would have let me. I long earnestly to be reconciled to you now, Aunt." That very night, Mrs. Reed passed away. I could not bring myself to shed a tear. Mr. Rochester had given me but 1 week's leave of absence, yet a month elapsed before I quitted Gateshead. Both Eliza and Georgiana departed Gateshead after the funeral. It was not a sentimental parting for any of us. Eliza became a nun at a convent in France, as she had desired. As for Georgiana, she made an advantageous match with a wealthy, worn-out man of fashion. How people feel when they are returning home from an absence, I did not know. I had never experienced that sensation. But the return to Thornfield was different. I missed Adele and Mrs. Fairfax, and I was going back to Thornfield, but how long was I to stay there? Mr. Rochester visited London 3 weeks ago, according to a letter from Mrs. Fairfax. She surmised that he had gone to make arrangements for his wedding to Miss Ingram. I was just happy to be with Mr. Rochester again, whether he looked at me or not, however long it might last. A fortnight of dubious calm followed my return to Thornfield. Nothing was said of Mr. Rochester's wedding. I half hoped that, even after his marriage, I might remain in the sunshine of his presence. On Midsummer's Eve I sought the garden, expecting to walk alone.
"You have become attached to Thornfield, have you not? Also Adele and Mrs. Fairfax?"
"Indeed, I have affection for them all."
"Pity. No sooner have you got settled in a pleasant place than you are called to move on."
"Must I move on?"
Then you are going to be married, sir? Exactly. You have hit the nail on the head. I have heard of a position that I think will suit you. It is to educate the 5 daughters of Mrs. O'Gall of Bitternut Lodge in Ireland. It is a long way off, sir. It's too far. From you. I sometimes have a queer feeling in regard to you, especially when you are near me, as now. It is as if I had a string somewhere under my left ribs, tightly knotted to a similar string in the same spot on your little frame. And if ocean and land come between us, I am afraid that cord of communion will be snapped. I fear I would bleed internally. As for you, you'd forget me. That I never would. Oh, I wish I had never come to Thornfield. Because you are sorry to leave it? Because I love it. I have lived in it a full and delightful life, and I have known you, Mr. Rochester. It strikes me with terror and anguish to feel I must be torn from you forever. Where do you see the necessity? In the shape of Miss Ingram. Once she is your bride, I must go. No, you must stay. Do you think I can stay and become nothing to you? Do you think I am a machine without feelings? Do you think because I am poor, obscure, plain and little, I am soulless and heartless? You think wrong. I have as much soul as you, and fully as much heart. If God had gifted me with some beauty and much wealth, I should have made it as hard for you to leave me as it is now for me to leave you. I'm not talking to you now through the medium of customs and traditions. It is my spirit that addresses your spirit, just as if both had passed through the grave. And we stood at God's feet, equal as we are. As we are. So, Jane. And yet not so, for you are a married man, as good as. Let me go. Where, Jane? To Ireland? Yes, to Ireland. I have spoken my mind and can go anywhere now. I am a free human being with an independent will, which I now exert to leave you. And your will shall decide your destiny. I offer you my hand, my heart, and a share of all my possessions. You mock me. I ask you to pass through my life at my side, to be my second self, and best earthly companion. But your bride stands between us. My bride is here, because my equal is here. Jane, will you marry me? Do you doubt me, Jane? Entirely. You have no faith in me? Not a whit. Little skeptic. You shall be convinced. What love is there between Miss Ingram and I? None. I caused a rumour to reach her that my fortune was not a third of what was supposed. Both she and her mother became cold towards me. I could not marry Miss Ingram. You, strange, unearthly, poor and obscure, I love you as my own flesh. Accept me as your husband. What? Me? You, Jane. I must have you for my own, entirely my own. Say yes, quickly! Let me look at your face in the moonlight. Look, but make haste, for I suffer. Accept me quickly. Say, Edward, give me my name. Do you truly love me? Do you sincerely wish for me to be your wife? I do. If an oath is necessary, I swear it. Edward, I will marry you. God pardon me, and man meddle not with me. I have her, and will hold her. There is not one to meddle. I have no kindred to interfere. No, that is the best of it. We must go in. The weather changes. Oh, the rain. When I rose the next day, I wondered if it were a dream. I could not be certain the prior day's events were real until I had seen Mr. Rochester and heard him renew his words of love. I soon learned that the great horse chestnut tree at the bottom of the orchard had been struck by lightning in the night, and half of it split away. Worse, Mrs. Fairfax had seen Mr. Rochester and I kiss when we returned to the house. I hate to think that she has misconstrued this as some scandal. I feel so astonished. Mr. Rochester told me he has proposed to you. Ah, well, That is, yes, he did. And I have accepted. I should never have thought it. He is a proud man. How it will turn out, I cannot tell. Is it really for love that he is going to marry you? I'm sorry to upset you. You are so young and so little acquainted with men. I wish to put you on your guard. Why? Am I a monster? Is it impossible that Mr. Rochester should truly love me? No, you are very well, and Mr. Rochester, I dare say, is fond of you. There are times when it has made me uneasy. I cannot tell you what I suffered when I saw you come in together late last night. Well, never mind that now. I hope all will be right in the end, but you cannot be too careful. Gentlemen in his station are not accustomed to marrying their governesses. Equality of position and fortune is often advisable in marriage. He has asked to see you. Jane. You look so pretty. Jane Eyre now, but soon to be Jane Rochester in 4 weeks, not a day more. The new name seems so strange. Human beings never enjoy complete happiness in this world. This must be a fairy tale, which I can and shall make true. You will have every privilege and attention that a noble lady could expect. I wrote to my banker in London, asking him to send me certain jewels in his keeping, heirlooms for the Lady of Thornfield. Never mind jewels. Jewels for Jane Eyre sounds unnatural and strange. Don't address me as if I were a beauty. You are a beauty in my eyes. I will make the world acknowledge you a beauty too. I will attire my Jane in satin and lace, and she shall have roses in her hair and a priceless veil. And then I shall not be your Jane Eyre. You are my angel of comfort. The wedding will be quiet, but after we get married, we will travel to all the cities of Europe. I'm not an angel, I am myself. For a little while you will be perhaps as you are now. Then you will turn cool and capricious, and I will have much to do to please you. I suppose your love will last 6 months or less. Yet I hope, as a friend and companion, I will never become distasteful to my dear master. Distasteful? I love you, with truth, fervour, and constancy. I have no interest in those women who have pleasing faces but neither souls nor hearts. I have never met your likeness before, Jane, and you please me, and you master me. You seem to submit, yet you conquer me. Will you say the same a year from now? Always. There is a secret I want you to understand. You are welcome to all my secrets that are worth having, but for God's sake, don't long for poison. How stern you look. I suppose that will be your married expression? What do you have to ask? Out with it. There, you are less civil now. I like rudeness better than flattery. I would rather be a thing than an angel. Why did you take such pains to make me believe you wished to marry Miss Ingram? Is that all? Thank God it is no worse. I feigned courtship of Miss Ingram because I wished to render you as madly in love with me as I was with you. I knew jealousy would be my best ally in this quest. It was a burning shame and disgrace to act in that way. Did you think nothing of Miss Ingram's feelings? She has only one feeling, pride. The idea of my poverty extinguished her flame in a moment. He smiled, and I thought his smile was such as a sultan might bestow upon a slave who his gold and jewels had enriched. I would not be his English Celine Varens. I would not lead the life of a pampered mistress. I insisted on continuing as Adele's governess, earning my board and lodging, and furnishing my wardrobe out of my wages. I was determined to show him the rugged points of my character before our bargain was sealed. Rage though he might at such distance and coolness, I would rather have pleased than teased him. Still, the effort kept me from becoming lost in his sweet words. The month of courtship had passed. Our wedding was but 2 days hence. Mrs. Fairfax, is that you? Eh? That's not a servant. Who is it? What a fearful, ghastly face! Savage like a vampire! Who can it be? I've never seen such a person at Thornfield before. Ah! Oh, what a horrifying nightmare. Eh? The expensive veil Mr. Rochester bought for me is torn in half. Wasn't that just a dream?